Gather, veterans. It's time to join the fight. The long war begins.
Well, this is The Long War. I'm Robbie B. And joining me once again are my partners in crime, Kenny Boucher, Stephen Ford, and Mike Haspel. What's up, guys?
Yo, dog, great to be here.
Yo, what's happening?
Hey, everybody.
So, we have a really exciting show for everybody tonight. I know I say that all the time, but this time, I totally mean it.
You say it literally every time.
But, yeah, this is literally the best day, the best podcasting day of the week. So, we have a special guest, Zach from the London 40K GT. I imagine he's the only one. So he will be on later talking about their new event coming up in May. So that's looks to be a big one. He's got a lot to say, and I know you guys are going to grill him about all sorts of particulars that all of us stupid Americans don't know. And we got some new releases, but the title of tonight's episode is Are D12s the New D6s? Because, well, there's some really interesting mechanics in Prospero we're going to get to that after Haspel laid it down on us in the webcast, I'm like, yo, that's really starting to make a lot of sense. So it's interesting stuff, I feel like, you know?
Yeah. It's like, I've been watching Westworld, and I slipped in a term from Westworld in the webcast. I was like, yo, it's like the maze.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah, that's what that reference was toward. I was like, it's like the maze right here. GW wants us to dig deep, play the game inside the game. They're dropping all the knowledge bombs on us, and we're picking up on them right now.
Putting all the puzzle pieces together.
Well,
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
that's you can make the case. A lot of times, there's a lot of trends. There's a lot of things you can pick up on, and you know, some of the comparisons that Haspel is going to make here is probably going to make a lot of sense to a lot of people, I feel like. So we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot of ground to cover tonight. Of course, we had a long podcast last week, so hopefully we will have just as good of a show for you guys this week, but not quite in the same lengthy amount there. So let's go.
People got to go to bed, and people got to wake up early.
All right, so the new releases for this week there's some really good stuff coming out. First off, we have two sets of bases for Age of Sigmar and, of course, 40K. And these are the hero bases they look to be pretty well sculpted from the picture. So these are the ones you're going to put your super special characters on, you know, all the good looking stuff. And they kind of look like I saw the one here. I don't know if you saw them, Juice, but one looks like it looks like a sewer pipe with like a piece of metal on top. It kind of looks like the Broodlord's base. So imagine that, but being able to put that kind of thing on, you know, any of your 40K models, or perhaps Age of Sigmar, I guess you could also. So those
That's pretty fresh.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's little wound markers or you can glue little skulls on different things as well.
Matter of fact, Robbie B, I just ordered we sat and picked out bases for my Age of Sigmar Skaven and my Gene Stealer Cold Army. Where do we get those bases from?
Oh, we just picked up a bunch from Elric's Hobbies.
Yeah, Elric's. How cool would that be with that brick that I'm going to use for all my Skaven? What is that? Not cobblestone or something like that.
Was it cobblestone?
Maybe that's what I know. And then I know a couple of the big ones has already like the sewage pipes on them. That'd be cool to get some of these extra ones and be able to put it on some of the smaller bases as well.
Yeah, no, there's all sorts of cool stuff. There's like a Lehman Rust turret. You know, there's like little barrels, and the barrel from the sprue picture looked like you didn't have to attach the barrel, and if you didn't, there's like half a barrel underneath with like some water detail and stuff, like actually part of the model and the base. So I was like, I'm really digging it. Now, they're $35 for basically 8 to 10, depending on which one you get. So they are a little pricey in that regard, but not any more pricey, I feel like, than some of the resin bases out there, depending on what you want. So, you know, again, like we say here, vote with your dollars. If it's something for you, hey, go for it. If it's not, you know, there's other alternatives out there for sure, I feel like. Then the second up, we talked about this before. What's the one thing everybody always asks you for at tournaments? Like, hey, man, you got any glue?
Yeah, inevitable.
Nobody in the history of ever has ever asked me for glue at a tournament.
They might have been afraid of you.
Yeah.
They asked me for different things.
Once you know, that's about usually how the first 20 minutes of every one of my tournaments start out with either I am personally looking for glue or 3 people in the room come to me. It's like, oh, Juice, you break your models all the time. I'm sure you've got glue, and
wow.
I have to I feel obligated to try to find them some glue because I'm a nice guy.
So now you are the designated glue discoverer.
Glue guy. Yep.
So they have this thing called the miniature repair kit. It's $20, and basically it's got the super small seam scraper with a little side kind of serrated edge, so you can use it to like file down and clear off all the chunks of the busted glue to get in there and get a nice good seal. And then it has a little canister where you can get like a mini bottle of glue and put it in there. Now, I don't know about you guys.
This is like an apothecary's arm, but for models.
Yeah. It says you can put it on your key ring, but I feel like putting super glue in your pocket probably is not a good idea. So
I have empirical evidence to support that you should never do that.
I will not be putting this in my pocket. I might attach it to my bag or something like that. But
if you want to spend 2 nights in a row on the couch, do that.
Wah, wah, wah. I think
some super glue in your pocket.
I think it's a cool little thing. Might be a future Christmas present for Juice. But another solid hobby release, and don't get it twisted on the little seam scraper. I talked so much mess about it when I saw their Citadel tools come out, and like literally, I go through withdrawal if I don't have my seam scraper.
Haspel has the best story about the seam scraper though.
Yeah. So the day, like, it was pretty much the week that the seam scraper came out. I saw the price. I made some disparaging comments about it. We went back. We were building terrain in the back of the store. And I'm using the seam scraper to scrape off stuff, and it skips off of the building and goes right across my finger, like right across my finger. And I just got up.
Like hard, like
really, really hard. So I got up and just walked out, and everybody thought I was hurt. And what I was doing was going to go buy one of the seam scrapers because it occurred to me that if I'd been using an X-Acto knife, I'd be going to the emergency room. Yeah. And that turns out that the seam scraper is cheaper than the copay on an emergency visit. So I just bought it.
Good luck.
Silently gets up from his seat, walks up and purchases one.
Oh, thank you, Lord Emperor, for your awesome devices. Wow, that's a hilarious story. I tell you what, no matter what I'm doing, I always cut myself. I'm like, wow, this project went and I didn't cut myself. I'm getting better at this. Oh my goodness. So
don't know. I think of the Fry meme where I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm getting better at this or worse at this, that I haven't cut myself in a long time. Like, am I getting less thorough at this or better at this?
Maybe that's what it is. I'm getting lax. Let's see. And then they're bringing it out with some, they got the dice, which looks really interesting. So they have these wound tracker dice, which are basically D10s. You get 2 different color ones in the box with reverse pips. Like, so you get a red with a white pip, or, white dice with red pips. And they're just opaque dice, but the styling is more on the actual pips themselves, which is pretty tight. And then
these are D10s. You can roll these. I know a new thing you can roll them on.
You sure could. And then there's normal dice sets for only $10, which are the smaller 12 millimeter dice, 20 dice to a little 10. I think there's 6 different colors. But what's hilarious to me is, and I know Juice will chime in on this, is there's a skull on the one. So how apropos is that?
They finally admit it's the worst one. It's the proper place for the fucking skull in this situation.
Yes, deaf. Deaf means 1.
Like, they understand.
Yes, I love it.
But what's cool about these, and why I could see, you're like, oh, GW's doing more dice. What do you do? But what is cool about them is that they're not traditional pips. They're like the stylized kind of Warhammer font. So like a 5 is actually a 5 and not 5 picks, et cetera, et cetera. So
numerically, game science, their razor edge dice always had the numbers on them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They look cool. I can't wait to get them in my hands and roll them and see what I think about them. But I mean, for $10, I feel like there's worse things we could buy in this hobby.
Dude, we need more things that are $10, like straight up.
So how about some $15 pieces of terrain? Because that was what's next.
Okay, let's break it down.
So there's the thing called the Bellwind Vortex, if you're Age of Sigmar fans, and the Mage Wrath Throne, which are both $15 each, little boxes. Now this is the Chinese-made terrain, or at least it was back in the day. These are like 5-year-old kits, and they basically split them into 2 separate boxes and reduce down what you get in the Mage Wrath Throne. But what's really cool about this is, we're not going to break it down on the show, of course, but rules-wise, these are probably must-haves for a lot of Age of Sigmar players out there, both pieces of terrain here. So there'll be a lot more coming out on that, but it's great that they're actually made available again for Age of Sigmar players. You're just going to have to get them for all your casters, right? And your
Literally every one of them, dog. I want you to, so I don't want to side rail us too much. I almost had a great line on how do you say the tree people's name again?
Sylvaneth?
Yes.
Sylvaneth?
Potato.
Almost had a line on it. I've actually was joined a part of a tabletop wargaming trading Facebook group that's based out of Europe. And shout out to Austin Lockett. I chimed in or messaged him just a little bit too late, and I was going to try to pick up a bunch of his models. Hopefully was at it seemed like a good price, and come to find out, his response was, I was like, hey, do you still have this army? And he was like, Juice, sorry, I don't, man. And I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Well, in my Facebook name it says Juice, so he's like, immediately shout out, big fan of the show, this and this, and we kind of been talking fantasy back and forth, or Age of Sigmar, excuse me. So big shout out to Austin. And Robbie B, I'm sorry to go off on an Age of Sigmar rant, but I want you to know, watch out for the Skaven, because I just scooped up another 40 Storm Vermin and 11.
I've been watching your games, and so I watch your games objectively, right? From someone who's never played the game, of course. And every time I watch one of your games, I'm like, get rid of all this shit and get me some more Storm Vermin.
Dude, more Storm Vermin. And dude, whenever I've been playing, I've only been playing, like, I have 40, but I've only been playing with 20, or like I did recently just bump it up to a squad of 30 this. So I banged down another squad of 40. So now my current list is 2 squads of 30 and 1 squad of 20.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was like in my head. I'm like, you literally need more of these guys. They're
so are pretty badass, I won't lie.
Then I was like, wow, this same dude hooked it up, and I'm getting 6 Giselles from him. That is my sniper range type dudes. And I'm picking up another 11 from another guy, all off this site. Great people.
Can you repeat the name of that?
Was that Facebook group?
The Giselles.
The Giselles?
The Giselles.
So I make sure I heard that right.
Yeah, they face mortal wounds all on the faces.
I think they're called Giselles.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly what they do and how they're used. Mortal wounds everywhere. But yeah, so I'm sorry to go off on that. But yeah, coming soon to the battle reports is about 80 Storm Vermin, Squeak, and some Jizz. L's. Yep.
Sorry that we had to go off on Giselles.
Well, we have the very first Age of Sigmar battle report for the new Path to Glory League that we're doing on the Long War. So jump over there. It's on the YouTubes. It's free to watch, of course. It's up right now. I think there will be another one coming out next week. Spoiler alert, there might be some ogres in it.
Yeah. Some clutch looking ice peoples.
Icy peoples.
They keep it icy. Yeah. Oh, I can't believe I never thought of that until just now.
So pretty much everybody that saw those ogres, by the way, Kenny, not in person, because the people in person knew I painted them, thought you painted them. And I was like, thanks. Thank you.
I am yet again reminded of the Fry meme. Don't know if that's an insult or a compliment.
I think it's a compliment. I mean,
on my end.
Yeah. They're like, oh man, must be good to be friends with Kenny. I was like, yeah, I can call him and ask him what colors to paint stuff all the time.
I can call him and he can tell, and he can walk me off a ledge when I'm about to throw this airbrush out the window again.
That only happened
you know how many Awada eclipses I have that he has given up on and said they don't work anymore?
Still using them.
That's purely conjecture.
This airbrush doesn't work.
There's no proof of any of this.
Kenny did he have a dirty tip?
He never keeps the tip clean. That's his biggest mistake.
Don't worry, I've gotten way better at that in my old age. All right. So last piece of terrain is the Hamatrope Reactor, which I almost feel like everybody's ears are peaking up right now because this is for 40K. And it's a really interesting piece of terrain. It looks like two little ladybug kind of round surfaces and connected with a series of pipes or tubes, an interconnected series of tubes, of course, that almost look like you can attach the Promethean relay pipes to them as well. And there's probably a reason for that. As we were reading the rules for them earlier that we got sent. So let's break that down because I'm out of new releases for this week. Of course, Blood Bowl's coming out on the 25th. It's
if
$100.
I can take front and center on the summarization of this new rule set.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it. Break it down.
I can break it down super quick. All right, guys. Apparently, there's a lot we don't know about the new terrain things that are coming out. But this new joint seems to be attachable to other joints. Okay. So this new joint can be combined with the Promethean pipeline, or as far as I can tell, most other pieces of terrain. We don't know yet. But here's what it does. This is almost all you need to know about it. If there is guys with plasma guns near it, their plasma guns become plasma cannons. Their plasma cannons become plasma battle cannons, basically. But it just doesn't work on vehicles. It's got to be a troop choice. And they already tell you if it's combined, you can connect it to a void shield generator, and it will make the void shield rerolls to give them rerolls to bring the shields back as they drop. And you can connect it. It even says if it's touching the void shield generator or connected by a Promethean pipeline. So that's suggesting right there, like right out the gate, that means I can buy Promethean pipelines and this new joint for the same piece of equipment. So that is something that we're going to have to confirm here in the future, but that's kind of the wording it's suggesting to us. And the thing, and also there's other little things in there, like it gives you a 4-up cover save if you're behind it, but every time you fail, you pass the save on a 6, it might go critical. You take D6 more wounds. When it finally gets blown up, same deal. Like, it's definitely cool. It's fluffy. But here's the thing, real quick. It's amazing. It's awesome. Every plasma gun in the game is even better. We immediately gravitate toward the Cult of Destruction from the new Traitors Taint. Haters gonna trait. Taters gonna hate book from Chaos. Basically 9 obliterators and 3 warpsmiths, right? They get to shoot twice. You do realize that, but they have to change the weapons. Obliterators have 2 different plasma weapons in their profile. That means on turn 1, they can just be, if you're within 24 inches of obliterators, like if you're just exactly 24 inches away, that means the obliterators can download 9 plasma cannons on you, which are now large blast, followed up by 9 twin-linked plasma gun shots that are now just regular plasma cannon shots. Back to back, same turn. 9 large blasts, 9 small blasts, plasma, all day, every day. Check this out.
That's a lot of Giselle.
That's a lot of Giselle. But it even says it can be connected to a Promethean pipe, which also
special
makes
rule.
Flamers, torrent, and heavy. Heavy flamers. So basically, last time I checked, obliterators also had 2 different flame weapons in their profile. AKA, you get within, what is it? What is it? 12
It's
inches.
8-inch template, so 20 inches.
So essentially, if you're in on the inside of 20 inches from these guys, you're going to get caught by an additional 18 heavy flamer shots, heavy flamer templates
That are coming at you from every different kind of angle, whatever's most conducive for the obliterators at that point in time. It's not just like barely touching, like trying to cover as many models.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's right out the gate. Like, this is the thing I needed to bring it home, to finally drive this Cult of Destruction home.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, this is something that has happened that we haven't seen before. We haven't seen a piece of war gear or anything else like that to really manipulate, like the pipeline, yes, this, but nothing that has been able to put it all together like this piece of war gear for the obliterator specifically.
It's 40 points, right? It's 40 points.
Viagra for plasma. I mean, that's basically what it's doing. Like, it is. Yeah. So having Viagra for plasma and the obliterators and all around that it can do. Now, Rob, is there something else specific to this piece of terrain that is different than others?
So just like the armor crates, it is a toughness value of 6 wounds and 4 up save.
Wow.
Boom.
That's all I'm going to say is that is amazing, because I want to keep being positive. But at the same time, I want to say restart the clock. Dreadnoughts aren't toughness value, but this is.
Yes.
I feel you, brother.
All right. I think it's time to go to the underground side of the webcast or the tabletop marketplace. I always say webcast recap because that used to be Haspel's thing, but now we don't do it so much anymore because we're on Discord while we record these things. P.S. guys, we're on Discord. Find us.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to kick things off. We were talking about Elric's Hobbies and their bases earlier. They're launching a new line of a product that they have. It's basically like wound markers and measuring little measuring devices, measuring templates. And one of the coolest things they have is like a turn marker that also keeps track of like, hey, psychic power, warp charges that you have or whatever. It's actually really neat. It has little slots to hold your cards and everything like that.
It's the Maelstrom marker.
Yep, it's the Maelstrom.
It is that
tracker thing about
I
it.
actually just put one of those plus their new wound markers in a secret mystery gift bag for someone on Twitch, and it's actually labeled and ready to go out as of right now.
Nice. The other thing that's out, if you bought the new White Dwarf, you've already know about this. Grombrindal, the White Dwarf, is actually available in Total War Warhammer. There's a little code that comes with the current White Dwarf that lets you go into Steam, you can redeem the code. It adds that DLC to your Total War Warhammer game. And if you don't have Total War Warhammer yet, there is a 20% off voucher also on that same card that gives you the DLC. So that's pretty sweet. And Total War Warhammer is definitely worth getting if you liked Warhammer Fantasy in any way and you have a computer that can run it. It is a big taxing on the hardware, but it is well worth it if you can play it. And then wrapping that up, we have Eisenhorn Xenos, which got some mixed reception because it's a mobile phone game that has been ported to PC and everything like that. It's essentially Dan Abnett's novel Eisenhorn Xenos. That you can just play through. And it is coming out for Android on Monday. So that's pretty cool. So the Android folks can start playing that. And then wrapping everything up is GW has a huge website that they're getting ready to launch. I think it's next week, called Warhammer Community. And it's supposed to be everything and anything Games Workshop hobby oriented. Don't know the exact final thing, but they were, posting some cryptic stuff on their page about it. So keep an eye out for that next week.
Wait, you mean we're going into 2017 and they're finally jumping into the blog scene?
Yeah, I get the idea. It's something like Spikey Bits or Bella Lost Souls, something along those lines. I don't really know. They've been pretty cagey about it. It could be a forum. It could be. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I mean, I think it's a great tool for bringing, because let's face it, there's a lot of properties out there. If you look at Facebook, there's like 8 different GW Facebooks now. So it's a great way to keep everybody all up to date in one spot if they want to drop something, which is really great, and it keeps the community involved, and we all rise with the tide. So yes. I definitely think it's a really good thing.
GW is a little bit bigger than Facebook groups can support on their end. They definitely should be making their own website, a new website for this purpose, and they are. So that's great news. That shows you, based on our discussion with Reese last week, on the moves that the new GW is making to tie this community back together. And now, the legendary Mike Haspel himself, the award-winning author of Graveyard Shift, is going to lead us in a discussion about this simple statement: D12 is the new D6.
Yeah, so all this stems from the Burning of Prospero Horus Heresy board game that GW released like 2 weeks ago. I've been looking at the rules for this, and we've been speculating on, well, if Age of Sigmar came to Warhammer 40K, what would it look like? And the answer is it would look like, I think, Burning of Prospero. And it's actually a great thing. It's really cool. They've streamlined everything. It still feels very much like 40K, plays very, very fast, and doesn't get rid of the stuff that we love. Now, granted, with the Burning of Prospero, you're limited to certain kinds of models, and a certain limit of models, a certain number of models. So it does need, some additional rules to it to flesh out the game that we know and love. But But honestly, these rules all fit on one page. They're on the back of the thing, and I'll run through them really quickly here just to give folks an overview of what we're talking about. So initially, the game takes place in 4 phases: the enumeration phase, movement phase, attack phase, and consolidation phase. The enumeration phase are what we would know right now as our psychic phase. So we cast psychic powers or resist them. You have 2 sets of cards. Everything is actually card based on this. It's actually 3 sets of cards. The third card set is the actual psychic power that you're going to try to cast. And then you have warp charge cards. And the defending player, the loyalist player, would have willpower cards. And the cards you have 18 cards of each. You shuffle them up and you choose one at a time once you decide, hey, I'm going to try to cast this power. So the guy with the warp charges pulls out his card, and it'll have a value on there. Like this is worth 1 charge point, or this is worth 2 charge points, or whatever. And sometimes they have different things on there. For instance, this is 1 charge point I'm looking at now. It says this card generates 1 warp energy point unless casting Coven contains a Tartarus Terminator or Ahriman, and then it generates 2. There's another card in here that says, this card generates 1 or 3, and you can choose. You can say, oh, I want it to generate 1 charge, in which case it does. Or you can say, I want it to generate 3 charges, in which case you roll a D6, and if you roll a 1, then a single model of the casting Coven is immediately slain. So you have to take an extra risk to do that. The willpower cards have a similar mechanic, where it's like 1 or 3 on this one. And it's like this card generates 1 willpower point unless any Sisters of Silence are on the battlefield, in which case it generates 2. And if the sisters are actually adjacent to the models that are trying to cast the power, then it generates 3. There's also another one that generates 1 or 0, and the player can choose. He can say, well, I want it to be 0. Well, if you say that you want it to be 0 and you're still able to block that psychic power, then the enumeration phase immediately ends, and they don't get to cast any more psychic powers. So there's an advantage to doing that. Once you're done with that, you're going to move on to the movement phase. Now, this is something that's controversial for Age of Sigmar.
Haspel, I know we're going to draw parallels to other game systems, other properties of GWs as we continue the discussion. What you just described to me reminds me a lot of Blood Bowl. It definitely reminds me of Malifaux in the fact that you're using cards. But I love this whole the phase ends if this happens kind of thing. And that's sort of random.
Oh yeah.
That can just happen. And despite your best efforts, that can just happen. And it's very Blood Bowl-y. I love that. And also there's order operations tactic there. Definitely GW is thinking about the bigger picture. They are not unaware of other game systems and not even unaware of their own properties, but it seems like they're also thinking about other properties that are successful. And I think all these board games are definitely kind of playtesting some of these ideas.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is actually a really cool game system that even if they don't wind up using this for quote unquote 8th edition 40K, I would almost like to play a full 40K game like this just to see how it would work out, because I think it would work out great. The next phase of the game is the movement phase. Now we're going to gloss over this one a bit because unlike normal 40K, it follows board game mechanics. But one of the things, and I know this is controversial, it comes from the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game, is players roll for initiative at the top of the turn. So it is possible to go twice in a row, just like Age of Sigmar. You roll for initiative at the top of the turn, and then you take turns moving your units. So if I win the initiative, I move my first unit, then you move your unit, and so on until we run out of units to move. But the actual movement on that is kind of tied to the board game. So I was just going to gloss over it a little bit so I could get to the attack phase, because that's where D12 becomes the new D6, and it's awesome. So in the attack phase, they have taken away toughness. They've taken away the stats for most things, ballistic skill, strength, all that stuff has been removed. They've taken away the to hit roll and the to wound roll. So now there's not 2 different rolls. It's all one roll. And it's very elegant, and it works. So the idea is that if you're the attacker, and we're just going to use Space Marines against Space Marines because this is Horse Heresy after all, a bolter is D6. So if you think about it like Dungeons and Dragons, a bolter does 1d6 damage, So a bolter is just a D6. If you have 5 Marines, you pick up 5 D6s. And
how is it worded? Is it like an attack value of 1d6 or like what's their cool term here?
Let me see here.
Because I was like knowing the new term, like
it just says, shooting D6. That's what it says on the
word. Keep it simple.
Thing. It's very simple. So the armor value, the armor save for a normal regular, regular power armor is also D6. So they got rid of the +2, +3 armor saves, all that. So you just get a D6. So if you have 5 Space Marines shooting at 5 Space Marines, the attacker will grab 5 D6s and roll them. The defender grabs 5 D6s and rolls them. And then you just match off. Highest dice wins. So you just match off the attacker's highest dice to the defender's highest dice. Any roll of a 6 or more does 2 damage. It's called a critical hit. Now, where it gets cool is say you have like a plasma gun. A plasma gun uses a D8. A melt-a-gun uses a D10. A heavy bolter uses a D10.
So it's not like the total cumulative number of dice I rolled wins. It's literally like if I roll, in a way, I guess it kind of is, but it's like I got a 6, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. You're literally saying like my and you rolled like a 5, 2 3s, and 2 1s. You're like basically saying my 6, you got nothing to block it. That's 2 guys dead.
That's 2 guys
dead.
My
4, my 3, you block it. My 2, you block it. And then my 1, you block it. Basically, you're just doing it in one kind of all at once series of rolls, where then you compare dice results.
Exactly. Exactly. So it gets rid of the to wound roll. Now, certain abilities give people rerolls, either to hit or rerolls for their armor save. They have different kinds of armor. I'm sorry, Juice, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, when we first talked about this concept, like, it's a lot to take in, you know what I mean? So I'm just like, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I like this. Guys, Kenny alluded to this during the webcast tonight. Just think about what we just said. Every dice roll, when it comes to offense versus defense, the shot versus my save is a compared roll. So what that means is it doesn't matter that you roll a shit ton of dice and you all you're fishing for is 2s. Oh, I see a random 1 in my 30 dice. I'm going to roll my feel no pain. At that point in time, you should just take 40K is what we've said is just basically coming to mathematics. Like take the statistics of what it's supposed to be and then move on, right? But what you're saying with this, that is out the door. There is no more, I just know I'm automatically never going to be wounded by a bolter. Now all of a sudden you start comparing the dice. Every roll matters. Like what's the worst when you pick up 10 dice and all you got to do is make 2 up saves and you bang down like 5 6s and 3 3s or 3 5s or something. You're like, oh wow, I was just looking for 2. So it doesn't matter about really what I rolled.
Results mattered, but now they do.
But now they do. Now you're saying like, oh, wow, I know I only needed 2s to hit, and then 3s to wound. All that doesn't matter. Literally, I roll all my dice. I want to roll hot fire the entire time. There's never a down.
There's no flipping the script on what's good when. 6s are good all day, every day.
Yeah.
like the more of them, the better. And this is a game. So this is a very game way of playing, which has kind of been removed from 40K with the bloatedness of die rolling, which is like, it's almost arbitrary. It's like you can design your army with so many combos that this
so
die
many repetitive, so many this, so many built-in, modifiers that it's going to happen. It's happening. Just go ahead and get your dice ready. It's this aspect of it is literally it took my brain to comprehend some things, listen to what Kenny was saying, listen to what Haspel, and it's like, I don't know about everything else. I don't know if I want all my 40K to change, but I would love to see this aspect of it incorporated because I want every one of my dice rolls to mean something instead of like, we just wasted a bunch of time, but let's move on.
How many things in 40K now are like, okay, I've got 40 shots at your Death Star. You roll the 40 dice. You roll it all the way out to its inevitable conclusion of no damage taken.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, wow, that was so fun. Not to saying that 40K is not fun. I love it. It's just where it's gotten super bloated.
Yeah, almost like monotonous.
Yeah, and so, and I'll just going to paraphrase something I said earlier in the webcast because some people aren't going to hear that. And it was basically just the concept and definition of luck. Everyone talks about luck. Oh, I was unlucky in that game. Or like, oh, if I had just a little bit more luck in this game, or my opponent's really lucky. Luck basically doesn't exist. It only exists in our head because you know what statistically is the most unlikely thing that's going to happen in a game of 40K is that every time you pick up 10 dice and you roll them, half of them are above a 4, half of them are below a 4. If that is never going to happen in a game of 40, that's actually statistically almost impossible. What's going to happen is over the course of the game, if you wrote down every die roll ever rolled in the game, you'll see that there is a pretty solid average. It's only considered bad luck when you're rolling below odds in crucial situations, and inversely, it's only considered good luck when you're rolling above odds in critical situations because you're always going to roll above odds and below odds, just like Juice said. Oh, I only need 2 up armor saves. You pick up 4 dice, you bang out 4 2 up armor saves. Math says you're not going to fail any. No one ever watches the 5, 4, 3, and the 6 you just rolled because they're just looking for ones. Like, so that's not considered luck, even though it is actually astronomically good rolling. It's just it's unnecessary rolling. Now you've made a way for the rolls to matter more, and more interaction to take place, and more kill to take place.
Yeah,
I completely get behind this.
That's exactly what I was about to say, because it's like it encourages interaction between the two players to compare your dice, because that's part of X-Wing that I like is you're like, oh, I'm rolling the attack, and then your defender rolls defend dice, and then you compare it, and you can you subtract out and you get your balance, what dies, what gets through, how many shields you use. This sounds very similar to that, and it's very engrossing and interactive between the players. Plus, with all the different dice, it gives Games Workshop an opportunity to have a new product to sell. Like, hey, get your Space Wolf D10, 8, 6, 12 sets, So I dig it. I dig it all the way around. I like the mechanic, and he's not even all the way through it, but I'm kind of embarrassed I haven't played this game, to be honest. It just wasn't in the cards.
Yeah. And so to kind of jump into what Rob was talking about, it's like, well, how do you account for a plasma gun, a melta-gun, a heavy bolter, or different armor saves? Well, what they do is basically the D6 is the default value. If you have a gun that's more powerful than that, like a plasma gun, that is going to be a D8, a melta-gun is a D10. So just by substituting a D6 with a D10, you've now increased your chances a lot, not exponentially, but a lot of rolling higher than a 6 with that dice. And if you're rolling, if you have a D12 and you roll it and you get an 11, then basically no matter what the guy rolls, he can't stop it. So that takes care of the AP value.
So anytime you roll a 7 or higher and he's only able to roll a 6, he's just done.
Yeah.
And it's additionally, anything 6 or above is crit.
Is a crit. But now there is a caveat in there that if you have if you roll a 6, you can stop a critical attack.
So 6 is critical on both sides. It's a critical block and a critical hit.
Yeah.
All right, cool. That's kind of like the reverse of 1 always fails an armor save. Oh, 6 always passes an armor save.
Right. And so then they have different armor saves for the dice as well. So not everybody has a D6 as the default for power armor. But you have characters like Gregor, his is a D8. So his armor is a little bit better. On top of that, you have a stat in there called stamina, which is basically what we call wounds now. And the way they do it is the same way as it is now. Whoever's wounded has to keep getting wounded until they're gone. And that is basically the attack phase. Now, in the consolidation phase, which is a housekeeping phase, you recycle all your warp and willpower cards and everything. But what's interesting is the wound markers go away. So if you take somebody like Gregor, who has 4 stamina, and you've gotten him down to 3, and then you can't shoot at him anymore, and we go into the consolidation phase, he's back up to 4. You didn't do anything.
Brutal.
So it forces your hand to focus down and eliminate threats. None of this, let me move here, let me just soften this up. You literally don't even play at shooting something unless you're taking it out, like if it has more than 1 wound.
Yeah, and I just want to say with that mechanic, it could be a way to incorporate back into 40K, like somebody saying, oh, well, how are we going to mix in feel no pains and vulnerables, cover saves, blah, 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 all this other stuff? Well, this mechanic right here seems like it'll put a good dent in a start in accounting for some of that stuff. You're telling me that my Shield Eternal dude, blah, 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 who sticks around for 1 billion turns, if you don't bang him down in 1 turn, he just keeps going back to 4 wounds? That's got to be worth something.
Oh, yeah. And it's like for cover, I mean, they don't have rules for cover in here that I can think of other than that stuff that blocks line of sight. But it's but I'm just thinking a really easy way would just be like cover adds 1 to your die if you're in cover. And that way you're able to go, hey, normally a 3 doesn't beat a 4, but now I tied it. So,
yeah, I mean, that's what it is in Age of Sigmar. So
yeah, so
makes sense.
So adds 1 to your result to a maximum of 6, basically. Like,
yeah,
cool. I can see that. We're gonna have to do a long war narrative battle report adapting this to 40K, because that's the whole purpose. Is that this seems like this could be like GW testing the waters, because we talked 2 weeks ago about if we thought 8th edition 40K was going to be Age of Sigmar or not. And that's a podcast. It's like 3 weeks ago. You can check it out. But here in Prospero Burns, it seems like they're testing the waters, man. They're trying some of these Age of Sigmar techniques out and kind of porting them over to a more Betrayal Calth 40K, 30K way of playing.
Yeah, and it is very succinct. Like I said, all the rules that I essentially just went over fit on 1 page. The rules that are actually in the book are just paragraph, almost FAQ type, elaborating on the rule. But the rules themselves fit on 1 reference page on the back of this Prospero Burns thing. The stats for all these guys are very War Scroll like. They fit in basically the size of a paragraph. You can just knock it out. And in the White Dwarf this month, they released a special exclusive mission that allows you to use Contemptor Dreadnoughts in Prospero. And guess what? They don't have an armor value. They have a lot of wounds and then like a D12 armor save. So it's just like, if you can incorporate vehicles with this now by just going, well, their armor save dice is just really high, and then you give them a bunch of the stamina, that takes care of vehicles. So they're, I could easily see them adapting a rule set following this kind of philosophy to Warhammer 40K in less than 10 pages. Just completely, it's not dumbing it down. It's just simplifying it, because when you're not rolling to hit and to wound, everything's taken care of in 1 turn.
Yeah, I think that's a great statement, Mike. It's not dumbing it down and simplifying it. Like you guys have heard me talk about HeroClix for years.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be addicted to that game. And I used to say the simplicity and the movement grid, the concepts of language of like what adjacent means and stuff like that. It looked really like lowbrow tactics compared to 40K, but it wasn't. What it did was it allowed me to grasp new higher tactics by simplifying an unnecessarily complex part of a game system. And that's kind of what this seems like to me.
Yeah, and with the stuff we're already seeing dice move different, polyhedral dice moving into Age of Sigmar. Granted, people are just using them to track wounds, but they're coming. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I mean, GW is selling D10s now. It's not out of the realm of possibility to see something. And one of the extra things I like about this is that when you're getting ready to fire with your squad at another squad, and you see the guy reach for that D12 or the D10, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, like it adds a little bit of trepidation, because you're just like, oh no, please roll low, so I can beat it with my D6. But it's a lot of fun.
And it's a lot like what we preach. Like, when we're talking about toughness on vehicles, people are like, oh, that means bolters can hurt them. I was like, yeah, they can. Why not? Like, it's a 75 caliber self-propelled depleted uranium
explosive round.
I feel like it should have a pretty, it should be like, I'm with that. I'm with it, man. I'm all about it, man.
Yet this makes all the weapons in the 40K universe be as badass as they talk about them in the books.
Yeah, it does. And it speeds things up so much. I mean, what is the average length do you think that a Prospero game takes? Granted, it's a board game.
I'm going to say, first off, just think about 40K, 3 hours. So I'm going to have that. Hour and a half.
Yeah, you're talking about 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. Now, granted, it is a board game, but I would love to points things out. And obviously, like we said, the movement phase right now follows a board game mechanic. So we would have to adapt, and it wouldn't be hard. We'd just take whatever the movement is in 40K now. But that's what's missing from the game right now, because it is geared towards a board game. It's missing range distances. It's missing movement.
We're just going to take 2 Marine armies, put them on the table, and just do the same thing. Obviously, they gave a Dreadnought 4 stamina. We'll put a Dreadnought and give him 4 stamina. Like, oh, it's an armor save 12? Got it. That means you're saying that AV12 is a D12. You're saying that roughly 3 hull points is 4 stamina. Like, we literally can do this right now in the Beats Lab. Like, we can make a 40K version of this right now.
Yeah, it would not be hard. And that's why I say, with one page, they were able to essentially get all the infantry rules down. If you give them, 5 more pages, I think they could cover everything that's in 40K. 10 more pages, you got even more room to work with. You can incorporate flyers and everything else. So it's just, it's a really neat system. I encourage people that if you don't buy the actual board game of Prospero, see if you can pick up a set of the rules and just try it out, because, with whatever you've got. And it is really neat. It's pretty fun.
Well, I think we're definitely going to, port it over and try to do some battle reports with it, because we basically have the rules for Terminators, Dreadnoughts.
We have the rules for a lot of Space Marine shit right now. We got this.
Yeah, I feel like this is a good starter game for us to test the waters.
Easily all day, every day. You guys want to jump into a commercial break and then jump into our interview?
Dear veterans, quickly make your way to thelongwar.net and find out how to reap your hard-earned spoils of this long war. For our allies at dicehead.com have rewarded us all with an extra 6% discount on all dicehead.com merchandise. So stock up, dear veterans, and enjoy. Dear veterans, quickly make your way to thelongwar.net and find out how to reap your hard-earned spoils of this long war. For our allies at secretweaponsminiatures.com have rewarded us all with an extra 10% discount on all Secret Weapon Miniatures merchandise. So stock up, dear veterans, and enjoy.
All right, guys, we're back from that commercial break, and now we have a special guest, Zach from the 40K London GT. What's up, brother?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Yo,
it's going good, man. And it's obviously going good in London because you guys are running a 200-man 40K tournament.
Yeah. So 200-man, that's the goal, right? Because we're basically the first large-scale tournament to kick off in London for about 10 years, pretty much since Games Workshop stopped running big GTs. And last year was our first year. We hit 88 gamers, had a little over 100 people attend over the weekend. We had a big painting competition, and we got some people come down just to attend. And this year we're trying to double in size, right? So we're trying to go from those sort of 88 numbers to the full 200, which is what our facility can pack. We've not just got the gaming going on, we've got some other cool stuff relating to sort of Games Workshop's involvement and some of our other sponsors, so we'll talk about that in a bit. But 200 gamers sitting down for a weekend of gaming is what. Is there
a special number you're trying to hit? Like, I mean, is this, because obviously a lot of tournaments in America are bracket systems or win-loss, so there's definitely a magic number there. Are you guys looking at a win-loss format or a traditional battle points format? Is there a number you'd really like to see just to make things easier, or does that not matter to you guys?
No, so that doesn't really matter from a tournament management point of view. We have a 20-0 scoring system like the ETC, so we can really nuance who's going to win out through the 5 games just using that. But the 200-person number is more a question of economics, right? Because there's sort of 3 venue sizes you can get in London. There's the school hall size, which can fit sort of 30 to 60 people. There's the big convention centers, which can fit 700 to 1,000 gamers or more, but cost 10 grand a day. Or there's or there's the size we were in. We found a sort of little niche for this year, which is a sports center, basically. So it's sort of a big hangar type room where they do professional basketball matches in. So we got one of those. Fits 100 tables in comfortably.
Is it on location? Sorry, Juice, but is it on location, or is there a hotel near it, or is it built in?
No, so it's a sports center attached to basically a central London school. I mean, in London, just like New York, LA, all the big cities in the world have multiple hotels all over the place. So trying to get a sort of block booking like you would with Nova or LVO doesn't really work in London. So yeah, it's basically 10-minute walk from 20 different hotels. So it's definitely a standalone system set up.
Yeah, that's awesome, Zach. What a great job you guys are trying to orchestrate there, because and as you're finding out, and you guys learned last year, and I'm sure that the hurdles that you're having to go through, like, how are you guys with the feelers that are out there? Do you feel like you're going to be able to hit that 200 person mark? Like, I want you to know, like, that is to go from year 1 to year 2 to in the upper echelon of 200 people. Like, I mean, brother, like, hats off to you guys if that can come true, because that's truly amazing. There's only a couple tournaments in the U.S. even that gets close to that mark. So, man, I really hope that that happens for you.
Cheers. Yeah, I think it is an ambitious goal, but what's the point in trying unless you try hard, right? So
no, and I mean, to be honest, if you're, like you said, with 88 on your first go around and this, and now, what is the feelers that are out there? Do you guys get a lot of movement from the different countries that are around? Like, we always laugh and joke, like us stupid Americans, but like literally, you have like a bunch of countries around you where we have states.
Yeah,
all touching around.
We have an American sense of world geography. So when we imagine your part of the world, it's like the size of a shopping mall. So we don't actually know it's a real question.
Yeah.
Like what's the draw?
No, I mean, it's a legitimate question, right? Because Europe is about the same sort of size as the States. And flights over here are actually considerably cheaper, right? So if I want to go to Italy or Spain or Greece even, which is on the complete other side of Europe, you're talking about considerably less than $100. Most of the time it's more around 50 for return flight. So what we're trying to achieve here isn't just the biggest tournament, best tournament in the UK with all the glitz and glamour that goes with that, but we're also trying to be, the LVO of Europe, the biggest tournament you can possibly attend with the best prize support and all the extras, and trying, get up to not just 200 this year, but, in 2018, we're planning on going, full convention status, get up to a sort of 600-700 people over the course of the weekend, multiple systems.
Multiple systems. Yeah, absolutely. We preach that all the time, is like, at that point, the people that attend aren't necessarily there to play 40K. It's there for the party, the experience, the everything. Soak it all in. And as a bonus, guess what? You get to play some games. But man, I'm sitting here and just thinking, like, hey, we're hosting an event in Texas or hosting an event in California or in Florida, and we have people flying across the country from Canada land and other places, and ultimately the language barrier is, deep Southern twang versus, the city slick or whatever. But I'm just kind of throwing all this together.
Is that the difference between you and me talking? Are we describing your vocal stylistic smoothness versus mine?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go with that. But then I'm thinking about it from Zach's point of view. Zach, are you guys having people coming in from Spain and Italy and all these? Like, literally, does the language barrier ever come up? Or is everybody pretty much?
Well, the great thing about English is, wherever you go, there's always someone that speaks it. And fortunately, 40K players tend to be pretty well educated. If you can afford the hobby like ours, you tend to be. But, the ETC has been established for a large number of years now, and English is always the language that's the
primary use. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's interesting. That's the point. Is like, so you actually say we're playing in English. Like,
yeah, exactly. We have an official tournament language of English, as you would assume, being in London. But the fact of the matter is there's not that many people in the world that can travel globally or want to come to London that wouldn't already have a gaming proficiency in English.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking because I plan events and organize and things, just not even 40K related or anything, just in life, and so my brain immediately switches on to what is the first thing, what is the first problem I'm going to run into, and so just from a logistics standpoint, it's like, wow, language could actually be a little more of a barrier than, man, what the hell did Austin just say to me? Like, did he ask me if I wanted a beer, or versus at the same table, but you're right. The ETC has been doing it for years, and obviously there hasn't been any issues, but man, that's super exciting times.
What typically is more of an issue is not the spoken English language issue, because most people are fine. Everyone's having a laugh.
Reading rules.
Exactly. But my Italian codex says this, whereas the English one says that. So
I'm always going to use that German codex, homie.
Yo, I was just getting ready to say I need to find out what language codex fits me the best.
Which brings me.
I've heard rumors that if you buy the Chinese one, the Chinese Orc Codex, apparently Orcs are really OP.
I don't doubt it. Which brings me to my second question, because as an American, absolutely, we joke, but like we're literally like, I've been to tournaments where people have pulled out like a German FAQ on me and saying this works this way. Like I have a vivid memory of being at Adepticon in probably 2007 Gladiator, where they kind of everyone's bringing the hot stuff, right? And I played a guy who shall remain nameless with double monoliths. Is back in 4th edition, I think. I can't give him too much shit because I was running chapter approved. I had like all the optional psychic powers and a demon prince that was literally insane. But he had these double monoliths, and like I came in hot on these monoliths with my chain fists from this unit of Terminators to bust it open. He's like, nah, you can't. I was like, no, like you have melt immunity, lance immunity. He's like, no, here's my FAQ. It's from Germany. It says anything that increases strength doesn't work. And I was like, that's how we're doing it, huh? So to summarize
Gladiator dog.
To summarize my point is that's kind of like, that's a summary, a loose, possibly unfair summary of American OPness in how we play 40K. We're always looking for the broken combos. Sometimes we joke. Sometimes GW puts out a set of rules and they're like, why did they make this rule? Then they realize everyone's just going to take 45 other jet bikes. And it's like, yeah, but they would say, who would do that? That's preposterous. Is in London, is that still the style? Like you guys, like y'all are literally going to take the best thing 3 times, or do you guys play a different game?
Well, that's a good question. I think, London GT is actually, sort of a great place in relation to the answer, because what the UK has mostly are sort of 30 to 50 man tournaments, and they typically would have either that point of view where everyone is sitting down saying, look, I'm not trying to be a dick, right? But, I can do this and I'm going to. And then there's another half, which are, you still bring a similar list, but you wouldn't sort of say that or do that to your opponent. And what the London GT can do, because it's got the scale, is basically after game 1, those sort of guys filter to the top or filter to the bottom. And the tournament itself.
Wait, you just mentioned a scale. We have not discussed this scale. What is this scale?
What do you mean? Sorry. So after game 1, you said filtering out.
So you have a composition scale at your event?
No. So it sort of happens naturally, right? So the players that typically have that approach to gaming will win their first game, right? On average.
Correct.
So by games 2 to 5, they're playing each other. So they're there to play the same game. They've got the same attitude, and they'll all have a good laugh, right? Because they come into the game to get the same thing out of it. So that happens at one end of the scale in terms of the scoring, and then at the other end, people are all having a good laugh and effectively playing because they want to win the tournament, but because they want to play 5 great games of 40K over the course of a weekend. So,
what kind of hobby scores do you guys, if any, attach to your style of 40K?
We have more hobby scores than most GTs in the UK, but it's still not a full part of the system.
It's not weighted. It's not weighted into the system.
It is. So basically, we have, because of the size, we've got a lot of prize support. So the prize support's for overall winner, which includes gaming, painting, list submission, and sportsmanship. You get, the LGT shield, which, is a bit of history now. We're trying to get, engraved up with everyone's, names for the next 10 years of all the winners, as well as, a couple of $100 of prize support. But the prize for best general, which only takes into account gaming scores, is also just as good, right? So if you want to come down and you want to do all the hobby stuff, you've got a great chance of winning because a lot of people there.
let me ask you real quick. This is okay. So this is something that's happened in America. Are you valuing those two victories the same? Are you saying like these are both the same, or are you saying overall it's like first place and best general is kind of like second place?
To me, the tournament champion is the big prize.
Which is that's overall best over all the scores.
Exactly, includes sportsmanship points.
Which actually is really cool because I think everyone universally on this podcast would agree with that is the absolute winner of any tournament, and that is almost how it's always been in America until recently, where now they've flipped the two, where best general is kind of the winner and best overall has been retitled essentially Renaissance Man by most events, and that is kind of like the glorified second place. Now that's kind of like what's happened in America.
You weren't good enough to win straight. You had to get painting. You had to get this. So I'll take Renaissance
you had to cheat. You had to cheat me by being a hobbyist. Yeah, that's kind of like the stigma.
You know, and all right. Go ahead. I have the feels right now.
We also have minimum paint standards. If you want to come, you do need to get your models based 3 colors on the model. You can't just turn up with gray models running around the table. So regardless of whether or not you want to go for the max painting scores, we still expect you to be putting in the hobby time beforehand.
Zach, I got a question for you, brother. Now, have you guys last year, or has anybody sent emails or anything? We have had through the years people show up with not GW models, which is completely fine, but there's always going to be that one guy, and I won't even go as far to say as there's that one guy in every tournament, but at least throughout a full tournament season, there's usually one guy that gets talked about that shows up with little pink flamingos as zombies, or
dollar store army grinmen as Imperial Guardsmen,
or the GI Joe, or excuse me, Transformers as Tau Supremacy suits. Do you guys
terrain as power field generators?
Do you guys have a system in place? Have you thought about what you're going to do or anything else like that to address that, or is that written somewhere, or what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so it's a good question. From my perspective, we don't so much have that, but a lot of the people that are playing now in the tournament community have been around for 20 years, right? So they've got second edition Rogue Trader era X, Y, or Z that are completely different size and scale to the current.
Oh, I love it. The old school Land Raiders with the revolving tracks on each side.
Or, obliterators that are smaller than a regular Space Marine now. So, we have a very explicit section in our rules pack that says, okay, these are the rules if you want to play with proxy, i.e. not Games Workshop official models. These are the rules if you want to play with vintage models. So, and it all basically comes down to, are you on the right base size? And if you're not the representative size of that actual model, bring something that is, because if you're on the top table and someone's calling a line of sight check with a judge, he's going to go get an official model and do it from an official model. So we want to encourage people to play with unique armies, hopefully that look cool and aren't just there to save some money, but yeah, we want to encourage that. So all we need to do is make sure that we have some very explicit rules.
So you're discouraging the I'm trying to play for free, like with some garbage models, and you're trying to encourage cool looking armies.
Yeah, exactly. We all want to come down, whether or not someone's winning or losing, see some really cool stuff on the table, right?
Sorry, Juice. I don't know what you're going to ask, but my question was a follow up to the stylistically the play out there, and I think you had mentioned this earlier. Tactics, so you've said that some people are just like us in America, like we got some OP people out there just want to play overpowered, and you got some people who don't. I have definitely seen a difference in stylistically in the way Europeans play the game when they come out to Adepticon and stuff, and I play them. I feel like I'm playing a completely different style against a completely different style. They're very, in my limited observations, they're very, very focused on winning the mission. Through through peer maneuvering, and their army lists usually support that victory condition. I mean, and Juice, is that something that you were about to say too?
Yeah. I actually was. I wanted to 2 points is move to that, but then I wanted to say I appreciate that Zach and his crew have already established that. You know what? If rules come up, we're going to pretend that we're going to bring a model that's to size, you know what I mean, and use line of sight purposes, check base purposes, and stuff like that. I think that gets kind kind of lost in translation sometimes. Even when a tournament, I call a judge over and I'm like, hey, there's no way that, this isn't obscured. But because the judge or the TO that comes over to the table looks from the line of sight of the model that the gentleman has that I'm playing against, sure, maybe it isn't. But in my mind, I'm like, dude, if you had the actual model, this wouldn't be an issue. So I like the fact that that's already established that, hey, we're going to get a model of the exact same what it should be. But no, Kenny, you're right. I would love to hear a little insight on the play. And then also, I think to kind of go with what you're saying on the tactics standpoint is because I think that from what I've always heard is that Europeans play with a lot more terrain, aka making it a little more tactical instead of it being like a barren wasteland and literally we have to build Death Stars because there's no terrain and fight it out, like versus being able to move from building a building and whatnot.
Yeah, so, it's a good question, and I think Alex Harrison winning LVO last year really showed up the way we play the game over here. When you get into the real core tournament competitive circuit, what you have is a focus on winning the tournament no matter the cost of the mission. So you'll be playing plenty of games where you're not trying to table your opponent in turn 3 and you're just trying to grind out 2 or 3 points more than them and take you from a 10-10 draw to a 13-7 win or something similar, because that next game you might get your 20-0 tabling, and that's where it matters. So we really focus on how many points can I get in this game that doesn't increase my exposure to risk that I'll lose it. And that's the approach we play. It tends to lead itself to resilient but fast and flexible armies. I'm currently rocking Elder Jetbike MSU army, which is doing really well for me. I played Alex a couple of weeks ago, tabled him. It's a really good, fast way to play the game. Spiders obviously, replicate that in a very resilient, flexible manner.
So you guys definitely play powerful. So this is not. It's not soft. Not soft. Well, I mean, your buddy over here, I think he won last year with 9 units of warp or 6 units of warp spiders, at LPO. Isn't that right? Wasn't that his list?
I think he had 45. Yes, and 9 squads.
9 squads of warp spiders. The Forge World, leapy, jumpy Wraith Knight, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's great. Yes, I was.
That's an incredibly powerful list.
Yeah, but we've got a real mix at the London GT. We had a guy on one of the tables playing orcs in those little jet bike things. Had well over 100 models on table. My buddy Leo, for some reason, had lost a couple of games and was down on the bottom table. And he had a supremacy suit and a Riptide wing, and he was playing orcs. And they it was sort of saying, okay, that's where people come up against this list versus this list. But they were both great guys. They both had an enjoyable time just cracking some jokes. But we definitely have a combination of power gamers, casual gamers, people everywhere in between, right?
What way to destroy my preconceived notions of Europeans being softer at 40K?
You've only got to go to one ETC to see that the people that like to game hard, and the people that want to just roll some dice, have some beers, and play some 40K. Maybe don't necessarily have that perspective, but what we're trying to say is everyone's welcome. Everyone will have a good time.
I'm sorry we've had this full conversation. I didn't even realize, is this a win-loss tournament or battle points?
We work on tournament points, which I think are the same as what you call battle points. So it's 20-0 system. Awesome. If you get tabled, you get absolutely destroyed, you get 0 points. A draw is 10-10. And then if you win and they lose, it's 20-0. So it's a very nuanced system all the way from 0-20 all the way up to 119, et cetera, et cetera.
Awesome. That's the best way to play. We all,
We like that style. Yep. Juice, I think we had another question to go out on that you had.
Well, just to touch on Juice's question about terrain, because it is something that you really have to consider when you're running a large tournament. Most of the small-scale tournaments or the average scale, sort of 30 to 50 people, they've all got great terrain. They're all run by clubs that have got 10, 20 years of invested time into building their terrain. So there generally is very high caliber and quality and quantity of terrain. Now, and trying to build into a 200-person tournament meant that effectively we had to approach the terrain from a completely new angle. We had to think about not just manufacture cost and time, but also year-round storage. We have, at the moment, I think over 1,200 different ruins
Wow.
And where do you store them, right? And how do you store them? So we basically, I work in the real estate development industry as my day job. So I got some discounts on builders materials and got some contacts that are architects that could do some CAD design.
Yes, I think I may have saw a comment from you at one point sneak through on the YouTubes talking about the same exact subject where you can get a good deal from architects.
Exactly. So basically, we just designed and manufactured our own terrain. We've effectively set up a small terrain company to manufacture at a good cost and storage position our own terrain. So this year we've got probably less terrain than some of the no retreat and all these tournaments that focus 100% on the quality of the boards. But we've got considerable amount, and probably quite a lot more than you've probably seen in the States. So we've got a guarantee, basically a terrain commitment.
Well, I mean, the fact that you just basically built a terrain manufacturing company for your tournament, that I've never heard of anything like that. So yes,
seems legit.
Seems good.
Yeah.
To kind of wind it all together and get us out of here, now we kind of talked about the surrounding countries and language barriers and stuff, and how we here in the States, I feel like we have done our best to get the West Coast, East Coast, everybody, not necessarily on the tabletop together, but whether it's social medias, blogs, podcasts and whatnot, getting the social aspect of it all together, the communication and stuff working. Do you guys have that community, outside of the tabletop, outside of the small store games or the clubs? Is there any kind of scene like that in Europe?
Okay, so there is and there isn't. So in the UK, we have a UK GT, which is a number of heats, and the guys that go to that see each other all the tournaments. So most of us are good buddies, but that's sort of a rarefied area of core, really hardcore tournament players. And what the London GT is it's a very much a tournament for everyone. So what we're trying to bring is that community spirit that you get from going to 5-6 tournaments a year and knowing everyone. We're trying to bring that to a year-round community of tournament players that may only get to the London GT, and that's their one tournament a year. And the way we're doing that is primarily through not just making it about the weekend. We're trying to make the tournament all about, okay, your tournament ticket buys you not only entry to the weekend and participatory access to 5 games of 40K, but it gets you into the community, which is monthly podcasts or blog posts. It gets you access to the Games Workshop support that we've got that you won't get it unless you come to the tournament. But we're effectively building a community not around the event weekend itself, but we're using the platform we're generating as hosts of this event to try to build a community of people that may never have considered themselves a tournament player before, but now are part of this new community. And Games Workshop have really recognized this. If they've seen the fact that what we're trying to do is effectively we're promoting 40K to new players, to people that may have played a couple of games and then forgot about it. If they come to our event, they won't do that. So they've seen that what we're doing is effectively giving them free promotion. And in return, they're giving us free prize support and trophies and all this jazz. And more about that will be announced sort of shortly. So if you want to check us out on Facebook or whatever, then you can find out about that as and when we announce it. But, it's very much a fact that we are at our hearts a community of like-minded gamers. And all we want to do is have a big party.
There it is.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It sounds like you guys have got it going. What are the time and dates?
So the LGT this year is on the 13th and 14th of May.
2017, 13, 14.
Exactly, yes. That's the next one. The tickets go on sale on Monday. So check us out then on www.london40kgrandtournament.co.uk. Sign up to our mailing list now when you hear this, and you'll get discount on Monday when they go on sale. I really encourage anyone that's listening that's interested to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook /London40kgt because, like I say, we're trying to do everything that a tournament is about from a community spirit. Blog posts, getting people to connect, getting people to arrange grudge matches and all the other cool stuff, that people actually want to do, but maybe can't do at the moment because tournaments are run as a hobby, and we're trying to basically bring a professionally managed approach to GTs.
So this is the easiest way for someone to find you on Facebook, or is it 40K? I mean, what's the easiest domain for someone to search this out?
So follow us on Facebook because, like I said, it's about the community. But for all the information, I encourage people to go to our website. That's London 40K Grand Tournament.co.uk and sign up to our mailing list. All the website has got a bunch of information about last year, pictures, quotes, and details about this year's tournament. But you won't miss a beat if you sign up to the mailing list. So I encourage everyone to do that.
Hey, Zach, we kind of have a mantra that, don't be scared to go to the GT. You might not know anybody in the room, but you always know us. You are immediately friends with us if you walk up and just start kicking it with us. So I'm going to share that same sentiment. Hey, show up to the grand tournament. You are immediately best friends with Zach. And kick it with him. You know him now. You hear his voice. And please, I encourage you to go out and have a good time there.
Yeah, I really will. I mean, I'll have a big smile on my face. I always have a good laugh whenever I run these things. So, yeah, come down, say hi.
All right, Zach. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. It's been great and very enlightening discussion.
Yeah, it's been great to come on, guys. Thanks a lot.
Take us out, Mike.
Death is a primitive concept. I prefer to think of them as battling evil in another dimension.